Hi everybody, I'm aware we've got a rubbish slot because the lunch has been served and now you're sitting, you're seeing the donuts, you've counted, there's not enough donuts for everybody. And thinking to yourself, just hurry up and off. So we are going to wish through this, but obviously half an hour to talk to you about a couple of things and we'll put together some slides that will give you some pointers and just some things to think about. So my name's Tricia Birch, I work at the Royal Hospital as officially a lean practitioner. Okay, and this is my colleague Anthony Duffy, who works in the same role. And our jobs at the hospital are around managing projects for improvement purposes. Okay, often which will measure some sort of quality benefit, financial benefit for our patients. So we're always looking to see where does that fit in terms of quality improvement, where does that fit in terms of financial improvement, and sometimes reputational improvement for the organisation. Sometimes that's just as important too. So that's what we're always looking to do, is make sure that we do that. So to try and talk you through project management in half an hour, you're only going to get a snippet, but what we thought we'd do is a couple of wee things that might be quite useful for you. So firstly, has anyone ever heard of lean or lean tools or lean methodologies? Yeah, a couple of nodding. So what sorts of things do we know already about it?
Looking at a process and eliminating waste.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the most of what we do. But of course, at the front end of that, you're looking at, okay, well, how do we first identify a process? Needs review. How do we identify that waste in a way that's easy and quick? And also, by that, what do we actually mean? Why would we want to take out the waste? What we're trying to achieve in doing that? And do we even need the process in the first place? So making sure that the whole thing is encompassed. You're going to be clicking? Okay, so we're going to do a quick 5 minutes on what lean's about, because for us, when we're doing project management, what's in the back of our head is, okay, these lean principles are kind of founding factors in it. For professionals such as yourselves, there's some things that you base a lot of your knowledge on, some real foundations, and for lean practitioners it's the same. There's some things that we always revisit to touch base and go, right, well, how does this actually fit? So we're going to push through that agenda. Oh, here's the solution. And we've said that as well. So there's two things. We spoke about waste, and the other side of that is respect for people in society. So part of the thing about being in our job is challenging and questioning, but also being really cognizant that the people you're working with are the ones that know the process and not you. So getting comfortable with the people you're working with so that they know when you're asking questions and challenging. It's about helping them understand, it's about helping them think about opportunities, or why do we do it that way? Tell me more about that. So it's really to allow that discussion. We're not the subject matter experts in most of what we do. It's the principles that we use that help us get there. So lean itself, it's about eliminating waste, which we said. Use of facts and data. Try and use data. Some of it's observational. We might come to your area and do some observations, and certainly that's something we would recommend with yourselves. Really standing on the sidelines, watching what happens on a daily basis within a process. Sometimes if you just ask questions, process map for instance, people will talk about what they think happens and what ought to happen, but when you're standing watching, it gives you lots of prompts that you can say, so when I saw it last week, X happened and Y happened, is that normal, is that usual, or was that one-off? And you can start to go, oh, I didn't know that even happened. And then usually at the back of the room, someone will say, well, actually, we've not been able to do it like this for a long time. And so we do it that way now. And you see people going, all right, okay. So it opens up a nice discussion because you've got something to work with people. It really is about teamwork, and ultimately it's something that's really important in organisations now because there's lots of stuff about it. But it's about right first time, getting things right first time. And some of you will have heard of the gift programmes that's been launched, as if it's a new initiative. It's not a new initiative, it's what we've been doing for years. under a variety of sort of hats, but that's what it's about. But ultimately, like I say, we go back to that all of the time, those principles, and that makes it a bit of a philosophy for us, really, in terms of what things about for us. So there's five things that we remember. We talk about specified value, value stream, flow, pool, and the pursuit of perfection. And that's what we revisit each time when we're thinking with you and when we're talking about processes. And when we're thinking about project management and we're watching you, talking to you about your work, hoping to guide you through a process, then we'll be thinking about these things. So there's a wee bit more about each of these on the next slides. So when we talk about specified values, it's about understanding value and as the customers. So for you, you know, in the room, you've got a variety of customers, but ultimately patients would be, you know, these are all clinical for the most part. Yeah, there wouldn't be any of you not clinical, is there? No, not clinical. So patients are your primary customer. There's other customers, maybe managers, things like that. Lots of folk get a bit uncomfortable calling patients customers. And early days in Lean, it was a really uncomfortable discussion, people thinking about it like that. But it's just a word that allows you to say, well, who's the person that we are doing this job for? So it allows you to identify the person. So if you choose to say patient, then fine, but ultimately there are other customers in that. That might be the family, it might be carers, it might be managers or whatever. Okay, so thinking about what's valuable for the person I'm delivering the service for is quite important. So knowing that, and usually when we talk about value, we're talking about something the customer wants, something that that person we're delivering the service wants and needs. Okay, something that's really important. So in terms of that, why would we start there? If we were doing this piece of work, why would we start with understanding the value stream, the value of the needs of the customer?
Just the idea of what you're aiming for.
Absolutely. It starts to help you reevaluate even what you're aiming for. Is this process necessary anymore? All of these things. Okay? There will be times when you think, gosh, we don't even need some of this anymore. That the whole landscape's changed. So you're dead right. It's really important. There's no point in being great at doing X if an organisation doesn't do that anymore. If it's not the strategic direction of our team, our department, our organisation, however that looks. So being really clear on who we're delivering it for and what is it they need. What do they expect of us today? Okay. So when we think about that, we talk about, well, what activities do we do that are value adding? What are value adding activities? So if you were at a theme park, what's the value adding activities? What's the bits that are you're paying for at a theme park?
Fun.
Pardon?
Having fun.
Having fun, absolutely. The rides. Yeah, these are the things that you're paying for. Yeah. Air travel, what are we paying for? Yeah, getting there. Yeah, not paying food. Yeah, extra luggage. But in healthcare, you know, sometimes it sounds as if it's explicit what we're looking to deliver, and sometimes we're not clear. I think we assume we know what it is our customer wants and needs sometimes. One of the things I think, certainly I'm a patient of physiotherapy, and one of the things they did with me day one was ask what it was I needed to get to, or words to that effect. Whether it's, you know, what are you aiming for, these sorts of things. They actually did ask me what I was aiming for, what my goals were, and all of these things. I thought that was really good. That doesn't happen across healthcare necessarily. You know, there's an assumption that we know what it is that people need. But then the non-value-added side that I just took it on is obviously all of this waiting. And waiting to be seen in healthcare might not just be sitting in the clinic today, it can be the whole process prior to that. Okay? Everything up to the point of seeing a professional and that professional being able to move them forward with care and is waiting, ultimately. Okay? So that's non-value added, it's stuff that people don't want to see, and therefore sometimes things that people want to pay to avoid. And that's where you get situations that people pay to go to, I don't know, Bupa, Spy, whatever it is nowadays, to get straight to the nub of it. So when we talk about value, that's what we're thinking about. Yeah, strapline, how much do you want to pay for? So sometimes, just click that one if you don't mind. We think about, you know, all of these things, all of these steps in the process is really important. The examinations, the investigations, they're really, really important. They're important as clinicians. But actually, in terms of some of our customers, the only thing that's important to them is know what's wrong with them, how we're going to get better, and when am I going to be finished. So that's what's value sometimes to our customers, and that really changes things, because we're thinking, oh, this scan's really important and that test's really important or whatever. But it's not for our customers, so we need to be in a position sometimes where we can expedite that and do things differently. So the next thing is understanding the value stream. I talked about process mapping, so if we know what our customer needs and whatever customer that is, whether it's a patient, then we need to think about, so where do they touch? What's the process for them getting to see me? What are all the wasteful parts before me, and what are the wasteful parts during and after me? What are the bits that I can influence? And that's oftentimes when we'll process map. So you'll see that really, really well. One of the things that we try and do with people is we start to help them do value stream maps where are a bit more detailed, where you really hang off which is value adding steps and which is not value adding steps. And again, that will give you more opportunities. So understanding the value stream is really important. Step 3 would be eliminating the waste and flow. Have you heard of flow? We sometimes think about patient flow as how we get a patient through the organisation and things like this, you know, or you have a patient flow team. But actually, processes should flow end to end, sequentially and without delay. And when you're project management and improvement, one of the things you should be thinking in your head is, so how does it all flow? How are the steps? What are the steps that now that process must take? Whether it's physical steps where perhaps you're using a spaghetti diagram to physically, you know, a map of the floor where people walking, and it's physical flow, or you're understanding that a referral goes from there to there, back to there, and up there, you know, and it's flow of data. So flow is really important in me. And that you improve flow by eliminating queues. So every time you see a bottleneck in a queue, you're trying to tackle that. The next two make sense. Go on. So the next one is about pull. So I've been in a situation where rather than people waiting, we're constantly pulling people up, and you see that in car parks. Places like Liverpool, where it will say spaces top floor, you know, you go straight to the top floor, they're pulling you up there, and there's usually an umpty on the second floor waiting for one space where someone reverses out. And you get, when flow's actually compromised, it can make you quite cross, you know, you can feel it quite hard. So pull's really important. And the final thing that's important to us is constantly recognising that things, the landscape changed, expectations change, and that we need to continue pursuing perfection. Getting leaned now doesn't mean that you're operating lean processes, because that's always changing and the dynamics changing. So that's where we start with a lot of this stuff. We use a little acronym to help us with waste. In our organisation we call it Trimwood. In other organisations we might call it Timwoods or Tim Woody or all sorts of things, but they're usually words around, they're 7 or 8 letters long, and they all mean the same. So we look at transportation waste. So when we're looking at a process, we're thinking, okay, is there a lot of things being transported, stuff being moved around? We'll think about, oh, thank you. And next, we'll think about resource waste, and this isn't about having too many people doing the job, because I don't think there's many areas where we've got too many people doing the job. But it's about not using them, not using their brains, not getting them involved in improving activities and improving the system that they're in. So that's really important. The I is about inventory and holding too much stock. Early days of lean, people thought the only thing we had to go at was reducing stock in cupboards. It's not about that. Patients on a waiting list is stock. It's stock of patients. Okay, so when you've got lots of patients on a waiting list, it's an opportunity for change. Okay, then the M, personal motions. Again, in the clerical world, that was tackled years ago. Everything became very ergonomic for secretaries, and we were only allowed to move in set directions. Less so around organisations, and in the old hospitals in particular, where we're working in a cupboard that maybe wasn't designed for what we're doing. It can end up quite a wasteful journey trying to do the job. Then, if you just look up the last few together, waiting we know is wasteful. Over-processing and production are things where we're keeping slots, we're carving things out, we're doing things just in case, extra tests, extra steps just in case, or checking other people's work just in case. Over-production and over-processing come in there. And then the final one, defect, which is the one that always hits the front page of ECHO, where we went wrong here, we went wrong there, or worse, where we end up with an incident on our desk where things have gone really wrong. So when we're doing project management, before we start even sitting down with the project, we're starting to think to ourselves, okay, what have we got here? And we're gathering all of this data in our head. And then when you start managing the project, and Anthony's going to talk through a couple of ways in which we can do that, we're using all of these little tools just to help us think about, okay, where are the opportunities to tweak, where are the opportunities to scrap and redo. So that's really where we start with things. So it's a bit more agile than if you were a project manager being recruited having done Prince or Prince 2 or Aspect or one of these 5-day project management courses where it's all about the paperwork and the initiation documents and all of this paperwork. We start with trying to understand the system that we're working with in the first place, and then where we're heading to, and then we'll design a project based on that. So Anthony's going to show you some tools that might help you design a project based on that. Okay? That one's, yeah, waste, we've got 2 types of waste. I don't think that one's going to show. Some of the things that you'll use in your as you go through that, you look at waste, you've probably all heard of 5S. Have you all heard of 5S? Again, this was when early days in Lean people started thinking about, is everyone getting the right stuff where they need it, when they need it to do the job. So it's another thing that you might throw in your project. But again, that would fall out of you seeing wasteful movements, and you think we need to move that closer, we need to reduce the amount of them. 5S is one of the tools that will help you with that. All of the boards, whiteboards, visualisation, make sure everyone knows where we are today is certainly some of the things that you would see in Lean typically when you're doing a project. So before we start a project, we're starting to gather that data in our head. Okay, now for the internet, is it going to work? Okay, fingers crossed the internet works. So one of the things that we know is that project management can be something that is a 4 or 5 day course. It can be something that you study for years, as part of a degree. And recently, around the patch, the trusts have invested in a programme called Live QI. And all the trusts have all bought licences for this particular tool. And what it does, and will allow us to do, if we can get in, all things going well, is it will give you a lovely structure for managing a project without having done all that study. So if you've got these sort of Lean principles in your head, the things that I'm going to look out for, I'm going to look out for waste, I'm going to look out for flow and build and all of these things, and then you use this system to help you manage the paperwork, then you'll get an improvement project that really makes a difference for you. Okay, is it working? Fingers crossed. This is the hardest bit, isn't it, when you've got connected internet and you're not sure if it's going to work. So does that make sense? For the ones that said they'd known Lean before, does that sort of figure for how your trust does it and how you've done it in the past? Yeah? It's not a big mystery really, Lean. It really is. Most of it is common sense, and that's why we don't need to be skilled in your jobs to work with you. It's about questioning and challenging the norm. Okay, I'm going to hand over to Anthony.
So I can sit down. So we were asked to give a few pointers on project management, but I thought this would be a good way especially for those who have access to this. So the North West Coast Academic Health Science Network has given all trusts access to LifeQI. Has anybody seen or heard of LifeQI before? So it's a project management tool for projects small or large that will take you through and let you understand what elements and just take you through that project management journey without having to go on an expensive 5-day course basically. It does take you through that process really. It allows you to see what other projects there are within your organisation, but it will also allow you, so from a benchmarking point of view, you could go on and search whatever you want to search to see if there's any projects going on nationally, to see if there's any hints or tips or guidance that you can from other organisations. So I won't spend too much long on it, but if you do want access to this, if you email service improvement and excellence at rlbuht.nhs.uk, or alternatively, if you go to if you type in LifeQI as I just did on Google and log in and register, we're the administrators for the trust. So if you like I say, if you register, it'll come to us and we'll just agree, so you'll be able to access this.
And there'll be someone in your own other organisations in the same role. So anyone who's not at the Royal, if you log in and do the same, that will go to your administrator of your organisation. They'll be able to set you up because it's been paid for across the patch, isn't it?
Yeah. So if I just show you an example of one that I've been working on, there's a general opening page around sepsis. It allows you to put an aim for the project, an end date, a start date, and what the rationale is for the start of the project as well. It will then allow you also, the next step is to develop a driver diagram, which highlights the aim and what the drivers are required to achieve that aim. I won't talk about the driver diagrams for hours, but I won't go into it too much, but it just shows you the sort of things that's required in order for you to achieve that aim, which is the one in the black there. The next step is the PDSAs. In other words, what elements are you going to change in order to achieve that aim? It's called the Plan, Do, Study, Act cycle. So there's various ideas that you can put in there. Then there's also what you're going to measure. So you're doing a project, what are you going to measure and how are you going to measure it? And it does allow you to put a lot of your data into charts. So you can see how the project is running. It does have to be manually inputted, obviously, but it is a good way to visually see how well the project is going. And that's about it. But like I say, currently we've got in the organisation, we've got about 70 projects that are using this. But I just think it's a really good way, useful, easy way, simplistic way of tracking a project, of managing a project. And like I say, if you do want to get access to it, you can go to LifeQI, type in LifeQI in Google search, and just register them, and we'll just agree to it.
So have any of you used driver diagrams before? Go on.
I was just going to ask, can you implement sort of action plans, or is it Gantt charts, that sort of thing?
You can attach documents there as well, so just so you've got the full suite of project documents, as you say, just to you can add it into the documents element there.
And the good thing about that is because you can add a number of people to your project. Say for instance I was working with you and maybe Katrina, we could share documents together and each of us see where we're up to. So again, it's quite a nice tool that's neat and tidy without having to get caught up in all of the project management side of some of what we have to do in the organisation. That's not to say that there won't be situations where if you're doing something that has a far-reaching impact, that within our trust, within other trusts, there won't be certain documentations that they want. They might want a project initiation document, a full report saying what it is you're going to do and what you're hoping to achieve. But if it's a more localised and team project, this would probably give you sufficient governance and process steps to work through a project at a pace that you can do and whether given the guidance of what's there. So the driver diagram, for instance, there's a template for it built in, and it allows you to start thinking about the drivers for an aim. So if we talk through a driver diagram, for instance, the first thing is bottoming out what your aim is, and that can take sometimes the longest part of when you're drawing up your project documents, understanding what the aim is. We were through looking at some of the posters before, and there's some really super posters there, isn't there? So has anyone used driver diagrams before for drawing up a project plan, or anyone? Yeah, you've used them before. So they are quite useful for bedding out what's the key things here, how we're going to break that down. So if you opened up yours, definitely just give it a wee bit of time. So there's different colours there, and you link different sort of high-level primary drivers to the actions that are going to be taken forward. I'm going to relook at that. So you pick out the key themes in the next level, and the next level down, attach all your change ideas to that, and your measures to it. Does that feel a useful way of doing some project management? So what thoughts do people have? What questions do people have? You've got to give us at least 2 questions, come on.
Is there support around using that system? So I'm not from this trust, so I haven't heard of that before.
Yeah, and I think Natalie Aintree uses it.
Right.
So she's in the QUIP team or the improvement team. She uses this. Her name's Natalie. And absolutely, she'll talk you through it and she'll get you access as well. So, but of course, because it's so step by step, you're only taking the bite-sized chunks in at a time, which is quite nice. So if you said, I'm doing a driver diagram, need some help, you'll be able to spend time with you doing that. So yeah, absolutely, that would be there. Aintree have a joint academy with the Royal, and they go into this in a good bit of detail on the training day.
Basically go through like like developing a good aim, smart aim, developing the drive diagram, process mapping. The next one's October,
I think it's October the 6th, October the 8th maybe. But if you pick up, I think it's Natalie Palin, P-A-L-I-N, I think that's her surname. And I'm sure she'll give you loads of information about what you've got already and how she can support you with that. That was one question, so there's one more. How many donuts were there? Is that the next question? No burning questions of project management. It can be quite a dry subject, project management, and we just thought in half an hour talking you through some basics to be thinking about when you are managing a project and using the system. It'll take no end. Good steps. And it doesn't matter that you're not from our trust. If you contacted Anthony or I, we're happy to help. We're all in this together. So there's no them in us. So don't worry about that. So I'm sure that the girls will be able to give you our contact details if you need any information. I'm happy to help. Okay, lovely.